there literally is no such thing as balance. It's just being the best that you can be every single day. Your team will understand, your boss will understand, your kids will understand. It's just whenever you're with your kids, be present.
Welcome to Startup Dad, the podcast where we dive deep into the lives of dads who are also leaders in the world of startups and business. I'm your host, Adam Fishman. In today's episode, I'm joined by Jonathan Jamil. He's the founder and CEO of Springboard, a company that provides fractional customer service teams and is powered by stay-at-home moms. He's a husband and the father of 2 daughters. We talked about why work-life balance doesn't exist despite so much talk about it, his philosophy that nice guys don't finish last, and how growing up in a 2-bedroom apartment with 6 family members helped him redefine what success means as an entrepreneur and a dad. We also had an in-depth discussion about how you can break generational patterns with intentional love, lots of hugging, and some family vacations. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to Startup Dad on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple. Welcome, Jonathan Jamil, to Startup Dad. Jonathan, such a pleasure having you here with me today. Thanks so much for joining me.
Likewise, Adam. Thanks so much for even asking me to be a guest, man. I will tell you, I've been asked so many times to be on podcasts, and this was the first one where I'm like, you know what? I need to be on this.
Okay. Well, a lot of people tell me it is the most fun they've ever had outside of Las Vegas. So here we are.
That's awesome.
I wanted to start by asking you about life, your life growing up, because I think this is going to provide a lot of context for this discussion. I think it's helped you develop some of your perspectives on life. So you grew up without a whole lot. Tell me about life growing up.
For sure, man. So long story short, my parents escaped the civil war in Lebanon. It was probably the mid 80s, I would say. My dad, fortunately, was a Canadian citizen as well. Brought my mom over, came to Canada, and it just was hard for them to adjust. English was obviously tough for them to learn. Getting a job when you're an immigrant is not always the easiest. And so my parents did what they could. My mom ended up being a Costco sample lady. That's where she first started. And my dad was a gas station clerk and then a grocery clerk and stuff like that. But for them, it was just wanting to put food on the table. It was never about like ambition and growing from there. We needed to just be able to provide. So when I say like the basics, my parents literally gave us the basics. We were a family of 6 in a 2-bedroom apartment. But again, when you grow up and you quickly realize like what's happening, it could either go one way or the other. You either get this fire that just never burns inside of you, or you just kind of follow that path and you're just like, whatever I can get. And so for me, I was fortunate to where, it took me the other way. And I just have this desire to just keep growing and stuff.
Yeah. And you lived in that 2-bedroom apartment with 6 total people.
Correct.
For like 13 years or so.
Yeah.
And so you shared a bed with one of your siblings?
All my siblings.
Your siblings.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I have an older brother and 2 younger sisters, and we shared a bed for a long time. And after 13 years, my mom obviously grew in her position. She ended up working at Toronto Pearson Airport. We grew up in Canada, and she was able to save enough to where she was able to buy her first home. They're still there today, but now it's just, my parents and my brother's still there. He's just more of like a caretaker now. My dad's, obviously we can always talk about it, but my dad's been handicapped since I was 18 years old.
Wow. Okay. Obviously you've done quite a bit. You have a business that you run now, which is quite literally powered by stay-at-home parents, which I find fascinating. And that's primarily moms. Dads can be stay-at-home parents too, but in your case, it's mostly moms. So tell me about the company that you founded.
This completely happened organically. It wasn't like intentional to be powered by stay-at-home moms. What happened was the pandemic had started. I had a marketing company previously. We were just helping brands grow on Instagram and Facebook and stuff. And a random request came in and was like, hey, can you guys help me with my inbox? It's just not something I can do. So we took it on, just completely like not thinking anything about it. But more requests started coming in and I was just like, man, I have something here. So moved on from the marketing company, spun off Springboard in October of 2020. And we just started growing naturally. Like we niched down. I was very hell-bent on just being in the consumer space. So CPG industry, beauty, apparel, food and beverage, just because it seemed like it was a really fun industry to be in. I was working with brands prior to Springboard in that space. And one thing just led to another. We hired a mom and she was a part of a mommy network. And all of a sudden, she just started sharing our job postings. So when I literally say we've never posted a job or an opportunity on Indeed or LinkedIn or whatever, we've never done it because our team is just so amazing. They just, every time we have an opportunity, they just go to work. And one day we went to the drawing board and we were like, holy smokes, we have so many moms on our team. And we were talking to a brand at the time and they were based out of Toronto. We have a lot of moms in Canada. And he was like, do you want to know why we signed up? And I was like, why? And he said, because we get to actually like make a difference. These moms that work for our account are literally in our backyard. They're in Toronto and your website doesn't talk about that. Like, why? And for me, I'm the type of person where I'm just like, I don't ever want people to feel like I'm taking advantage of them or I'm trying to manipulate something. It just was never on the site. But more brands were just demanding it. They're like, that's your story, that's your thing, and you need to tell people that. And I mean, here we are.
That's amazing. And of course, you and I met because we both have EAs who work for another company that is powered by stay-at-home parents, and it's Squared Away, which is military parents. It's all about military spouses who can't normally hold down a regular 9 to 5 because they're moving all the time. They like moving from base to base and things like that. So I think that's pretty fascinating. And like that is the reason that I signed up for that service.
I love Squared Away. Michelle, she's the co-founder of Squared Away, and she was someone that I looked up to. Like, I feel like I found them back in 2022. I followed her on social media, I connected with her on LinkedIn, and I just loved what she was building. And I always tell people, like, if God willing, Springboard is to ever get acquired or merge with anybody, I'd want it to be with Squared Away just because I just feel like their missions, it's so identical to what we do here. And so I'm just putting it out there, but shout out to Kaylin and Michelle.
Yeah, awesome. And Maggie too, who is...
Maggie too, sorry, Maggie too.
So let's talk about your co-founder in life, your wife, Stephanie. She's a stay-at-home mom. Does she do work at Springboard, or does she have her hands full with the 6 and 3-year-old?
She does. So she recently became a stay-at-home mom, literally in June. It's the promise that I made her from the get-go. She, invested in me. She allowed me to take money from our savings account. She allowed me to build the business the way that I needed to in order to get to the point. And obviously, fast forward for almost 5 years later, she was able to quit her job. She does help me with a lot of the back end stuff. It's easy because she's my wife. She loves it because she loves the people that are here. And some of the brands that we work with now, she's a customer of those brands. So for her, it's like, it's more of a connection because it's like, hey, I'm a customer. So I want to work with these brands. I want to help them out and stuff. So yeah, she is super mom and she's super wife because she does help us on the back end for sure.
Oh, awesome. And then you also have a 6-year-old and
Yes.
a 3-year-old. So you've been building this company since, your oldest daughter was like a year, maybe even a little less. What has that been like to build a company and have your kids sort of grow up watching you do that?
My oldest is Chantal. She was a year. And honestly, man, it sucks in the beginning because I was a new dad. She was a year old. And you always see those videos and you always want to be that dad that's like picture perfect, like you're always present and stuff. But Springboard just took so much of my attention. I'll say that part sucked because I wanted to just be with her all the time. But she was the reason why I got up every morning. So it was like, I just want to give her the life that obviously I didn't get to have. My parents tried their best. But as a dad, I was like, I don't ever want my kids to feel what I felt growing up. I don't want them to see what I saw growing up and stuff like that. So for me, it was like, they were my why. I didn't get to be the perfect dad. Sometimes I'm not the perfect CEO, but it's been awesome. I get to take them on vacation now. I get to spend a lot more time with them. And they see that, daddy's on a call, don't come into the office. Daddy's, doing something. I'm seeing it at school. So my daughter is very ambitious. She loves trying new things. She's not scared. And I think that's probably what she saw in me is that no matter what type of day I was having, she saw me just plugging away. And I think that's probably the best thing that I've seen yet is she's fearless.
Wow. Okay. The most popular episode of Startup Dad that I've ever recorded is with a guy named Siki Chen. And the title of that episode is called Work-Life Balance is Overrated. And I think this is really interesting because you share a very similar, and some would say these days, like a somewhat contrarian opinion on this, which is that there's no such thing as work-life balance. Tell me about that.
That's the thing, man. Like I started the business. I was a new dad. My wife and I had only been married for not even 3 years at the time. And I was always searching for balance. Like, okay, I'm going to work 9 to 5, and then I'm going to be a dad early mornings and after 5 p.m. And that just never existed. It never happened because I was working 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. or sometimes on weekends. And it would actually eat at me because I'm like, no, like there has to be a balance. This exists. People talk about it. And, after so many years of building, I've realized that there's no such thing as balance. It's just managing the day to day. Like today I have, this podcast and my kids know that I'm not going to be available for the next X amount of time, but that shouldn't take a toll on me. And it used to, because I was like, no, I got to find that middle ground. And for me, I always just tell people like on Monday, you might be the best CEO, the best boss, the best employee, whatever that might be. But on Tuesday, you might be the best mom or you might be the best dad. There literally is no such thing as balance. It's just being the best that you can be every single day. Your team will understand, your boss will understand, your kids will understand. It's just whenever you're with your kids, be present, be in that moment. Don't look at your phone. Don't think about work. And I'm still learning. I've been at this since I was 18 years old. Not Springboard, but like this entrepreneurship journey. But yeah, it's just being mindful of what you're doing at the time. So right now I'm recording a podcast. That's all I'm thinking about. And then maybe once this podcast is done, I'll go play with my kids outside and just be more present in that moment.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. And it's like, nothing's ever perfectly balanced. It's like a seesaw, right? You're maybe leaning into being a dad and then you lean into being a CEO. And I once had a conversation, not even on this podcast, well before this podcast, with a pretty successful CEO who had 3 kids. And I asked him, I was just starting becoming a dad myself. I'm like, how do you do it? How do you be a CEO and a founder? And he's like, I do it. I'm about 80% good at being a CEO, and then I'm about 80% good at being a dad. And like those tend to fluctuate.
Exactly.
It goes up to 100 and down to 60 or like whatever.
It's literally that every single day. I actually posted about it on LinkedIn the other day that you're only best at one thing every single day. So again, you might be the best dad, you might be the best husband on Wednesday and whatever that case may be.
Yeah. Now you told me you spent some time in your life really redefining what success looks like as a dad and a business owner. Is this part of that definition of success for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, fortunately for me growing up, one of my cousins became very successful at a young age. It was the nice cars and the nice houses and all that stuff. And he had a similar upbringing to me. And he actually dropped out at 15 and just went to work. And for me, that used to define success, like being able to have the nice cars and the nice houses and stuff. And then when I became a dad and I was growing Springboard, for me, it was like, it's not even about that anymore. It's just about living in comfort, never struggling for something or never being hungry for something. That's what success is like if you can get up every morning, there's food in your fridge, you slept on a bed with a roof over your head, your family's healthy, most importantly, and everything else is a cherry on top.
Oh, I love that. What are some of the more surprising things that you've discovered as a dad?
The second child is always the toughest. That's probably been the most surprising because my 6-year-old, she was an angel. I always call her an enigma because everybody around us that had kids, they're crying, they're complaining, they're this, they're that. My 6-year-old, she was sleeping through the night. She barely cried. She ate. She did everything. And we're like, oh my God, this is so easy. Let's go for the second. And then my 2-year-old came and she was colic. She was a terror. And even till now, she's super needy. But I always thought like your kids would turn out the same. It's easy to manage. Another surprising thing is that like if you don't have a village around you, it actually makes parenting very, very hard, especially if you're working. So being around family was something that I probably took for granted because I was like, no, like I'm an entrepreneur alone. I'm doing this alone, like, and stuff like that. But when you have like your in-laws and your sister-in-laws and your brother and your parents around you, it makes having kids a lot easier because there's days where you just want to rip your hair out of your head and you're like, man, I need a break. And, fortunately for us, we're able to just, have those breaks. So that's
Yeah.
the one thing that probably surprised me the most, was that you actually can't do it alone.
Yeah. Have you always lived in some proximity to family or extended family, or is that,
Yep.
yeah.
So obviously I grew up in Toronto, stayed in my parents' house up until I got married. I got married at 26, and my wife was from Buffalo, New York. And so I moved here, but she has a massive family. Like, I think she has like 50 first cousins here, and her parents are here, her siblings are here, everyone's here. So it's like you're just surrounded by this massive community, which is awesome.
So if you could rewind the clock to the time right before you had your oldest daughter,
Yeah.
so, maybe 6 months before, you're getting probably pummeled with advice, right?
Yeah.
You've got all this family, she's got family, like advice coming in left and right. So let's say you bump into younger Jonathan after kind of what you know now
Yeah.
with a 6 and a 3-year-old. Like, what advice would you give the younger version of yourself right before you're about to have a kid?
Just having a lot more patience, probably. A lot of the times you expect things to happen very quickly. Even as a dad, you have your moments where you're like, oh, she's crying, she's having a fit. I can't wait till she's older where this kind of stops. I think just telling myself like it's all gonna work out, it's gonna be fine, be more present. These moments are never gonna happen again. Just have more patience and take it for what it is. If she's screaming her head off, just go with it. I think my younger self, I was always hungry for speed, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense, where I just wanted things to happen a lot faster. My daughter is 6 now, going into the first grade, and I just look at her and I'm just, sometimes I wish we could just go back to those days.
Yeah. What would you tell yourself maybe to ignore? Any advice that you got where you're like, I'm just gonna throw that right out the window?
Honestly, advice that I would probably ignore is that the wife is responsible for 80% of the child upbringing. Obviously, growing up in like more of like a Middle Eastern traditional family, you see your mom is the one that's the caretaker. She's the one that cooks and cleans and takes care of the kids, and the man is like, supposed to provide. I think that advice where people think it's still like that, I ignored that from the get go because, growing up with a handicapped father, we had to step up and like help my mom with chores and stuff like that. So I was always helpful to my wife, and I never allowed her to take on the entire workload. So I was as present as I could be. I helped with the chores around the house. If I saw her having a bad day, I stepped up when I could. And she knows everything is 50-50. So if she comes to me and she's like, hey, I'm at a 30, I know I have to be at 70 in order
Yeah.
to make up for that. So that's definitely advice I would ignore, is that it's not just the mom's job. Dads play such a big role. Obviously, sometimes dads are a lot busier in some scenarios, and not most scenarios, obviously, but dads are important.
Yeah. That's why I have this podcast.
Exactly.
So speaking of your wife, you have this belief that you should never stop dating or pursuing your wife. I've heard a few people talk about this just in general. So where did you learn that and what does that mean for you?
Man, funny enough, I learned it on Instagram. It wasn't like something that someone taught me or told me. Again, growing up in more of like a Middle Eastern, affection was never really a thing,
Yeah.
especially between my parents. It was more like hi, hi, bye, bye. Do you need anything? That type of stuff. But for me, I grew up affectionate. Like if you ask my siblings and my mom, I was always the one hugging and kissing everybody. I learned it on Instagram. Obviously, you always want to be the best version of yourself, whether it's a husband, a person, a human, a dad, whatever it is. And I saw like an Instagram video, and it was like, never stop pursuing your wife. And we had our first daughter at the time, and it happens. It happens to so many people where you neglect each other. It's okay, but I think making up like flowers on her birthday, flowers on Valentine's Day, having those date nights is so important. Taking vacation at least twice a year, whether it's with her or with your entire family. I mean, my wife and I take vacations with our kids all the time. It was such an important thing to learn, because I think a lot of husband and wife or spouses in general, they tend to neglect each other because they think it's better for the kids. But I think when the kids grow up and they see mom and dad loving each other and going out on dates and holding hands, and I think the kids, I don't know, I just feel like they tend to do better because they're like, hey man, my parents really love each other. You kind of set the tone of like, hey, this is what love looks like. I hope to God that my daughters, when they grow up, they're like, I want a guy like dad, because dad, whatever mom needed, he was there. He loves her so much and stuff. So I feel like that is such an important thing.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
Thank you, man.
So I wanted to stick on that vacation topic because
Yeah,
this is something that you mentioned to me. Okay, we acknowledge work-life balance doesn't really exist. However, you believe pretty strongly that it's important to take vacation and take time off throughout the year. So you mentioned two, but like what's your ideal number and why do you find it so important to just like take a beat and take that vacation time?
for sure. So I'll kind of give a little history on that, Adam. So when my wife and I got married, one of my aunts, her marriage advice was take at least 2 vacations a year. Now, as a newlywed, it doesn't really make sense because you're like, oh, I mean, I can go vacation every month. You don't really understand.
Right.
But when we had kids and I started the business, people don't believe me, but I was working like 15, 16 hours a day, 8 to 10 hours on weekends. Like I was literally killing myself. I hit burnout so many times I can't even count. And one day my wife was like, you just can't do this to yourself anymore. You need to stop. And even if it means cutting your hours. So I ended up slashing my hours to like 4 or 5 on weekends. And I went down to like 10 to 12 hours on weekdays. But I took a vacation. I took my wife and my daughters on a 2 week vacation. And I just came back recharged. I came back a brand new person. And that specific vacation taught me if you don't recharge, you have nothing to give. The ideal number for me, I probably need like 10 vacations a year based on how much energy and effort I exert on a daily basis. But I think if you can go on 2 vacations a year, once every 6 months, it just does the mind, body, and soul so much. I mean, I just came back from vacation 2 weeks ago and you're just a whole new person. If you have a job that takes a lot of energy from you, plus you're a parent or you're a business owner or whatever the case may be, if you're not giving yourself that time to recharge, you are going to hit that wall. And sometimes people never recover from that.
Yeah. What are your like top 1 or 2 vacations that you've gone on as a family?
So we just went to Cape May, New Jersey.
Oh,
We
cool.
did that for a week and we stayed like right on the beach and it was just absolutely amazing. We've been to a bunch of like beach towns, Ocean City, Rehoboth in Delaware, and we were kind of expecting like the same vibe, same thing, but Cape May blew our expectations like out of the water. The people were
Wow.
amazing. The food was incredible. Not something that's common in beach towns, but I'm a big Disney guy. We went to Disney World end of April and we were like hooked. We like want to go again like soon or next year, but it's a lot of walking. If you can take your family to Disney World even once in your lifetime, it just does something. Like 7-year-old Jonathan was like so giddy. He was just like on cloud nine. You get to, yeah, there's people like wearing the Mickey suit and all that stuff, but it struck a chord. And I can understand why people literally say Disney is like the most magical place in the world just because of
Yeah.
that.
I'm personally terrified of going to Disney as a family because it just sounds like I've read people's like report of how they organize their trip and I'm like, man, that sounds exhausting. But I think my kids are old enough where like we would be just fine. But yeah, I've always had this like mental block against going to Disney because of how much work it sounds.
Adam, I'm telling you, we worked with a
Got to do
travel
it.
agent. You got to do it, man. You're going to hear the horror stories. But when I say I don't have a single complaint, like our trip went perfect. Nothing's perfect. And that's what I was expecting. Like something's going to go wrong. Something's going to go wrong. Nothing went wrong. Absolutely nothing. And so I tell people like you're going to hear the horror stories all the time, but take it from me. We had the most perfect trip. I tell everybody.
Okay. Well, I'm going to have to add it to the list.
There you go.
We talk about frameworks a lot on this show, and you have what I would say is a very simple and straightforward framework for being a dad. It's rooted in just like a couple of pillars, and that is show up, listen, and tell them you love them any chance you can. How did you figure that out? Is that another Instagram inspiration or just like natural to Jonathan?
Yeah. So the affection part is naturally me. I feel it's not to like toot my own horn, but a lot of people, if you talk to them about me, they'll probably tell you that I'm the nicest guy they've ever talked to. And that's not by accident. I always grew up wanting to be someone's friend because I was going through a lot and I had amazing people around me. And I just wanted to be that guy for a lot of people. So a lot of my friends would call me and vent and cry. Till this day, I have a lot of people that call me and they're like, "Hey, Johnny, like, this is what's going on," or "this is happening." Like, people just looking for me to calm them down. And that's just naturally been me. I've been that way since day one. And I'm like that with my kids. You know, being a parent, just being a person in general, I think if there was more kindness in this world, there'd be a lot less issues.
Yeah. All right. So show up, listen, and tell them you love them as often as you can.
The love part is the most important part because, again, I always go back to my upbringing. I love my parents to death, but affection just doesn't really exist in a lot of immigrant homes and stuff. Every second I see my kids, I grab them, I squeeze them, I kiss them, I love you, whatever. Like my own sisters. My sister is like 33 years old. I still just grab her and squeeze her every time I see her and just kiss her and just, God forbid if something happened to me today, I don't ever want anybody to question whether Johnny loved them or not. So that's how I always think.
I was going to say, it sounds like you're a big hugger, and then you went there and told me about it.
Yeah, big one.
Okay, so I want to change the channel for a second. This is a really funny story that you have, or maybe not funny. I don't know. You had a run-in with the law when your youngest daughter was a baby.
Yep.
A colicky baby. So tell me this story.
Yeah. So obviously my daughter's colic. My wife was actually postpartum as well. So we were dealing with that. And Chantal was a toddler. Obviously toddlers, when a new sibling comes into the household, they don't know how to react. So Chantal, we were kind of surprised that she was very jealous. She was seeking attention. She was lashing out and stuff. And when you have a colic baby, people know this, they cry nonstop and they barely sleep. So my second daughter, Cece, she would cry literally for 6 days in a row. Like she wouldn't sleep. She wouldn't nap. She wouldn't sleep. She wouldn't eat, nothing. And so my wife and I are just running on fumes. We're running on coffee. And so I drove to the coffee shop and I was literally I think I was on like 30 minutes of sleep. I had like 6 shots of espresso at the time, needed more. So I was driving back and I didn't realize I was going like 15 or 20 over the limit. And I got pulled over and, luckily for me, I just told the cop what happened. Like he kind of let me off, but I was like, wow, can things really get this worse? Like I have this, colic baby and I'm worried about my wife and I'm just trying to fuel up just so I can make it till 9 p.m. And yeah, got pulled over.
Oh, wow. What was the police officer's first reaction to that? Were they like, "Oh, I'm so sorry"?
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, I totally understand what you're going through, man." He was like, "Listen, just please be more mindful of how fast you're driving. Just, go and have a good day, I guess." And then that was it. So I was like, luckily for me, I was like, I got out of that ticket because I already know 15 to 20 over it's pretty up there.
He probably looked at you with like bloodshot eyes. You're in your pajamas, and he's just like, "What is this guy on?"
I told my wife, I was like, if it wasn't for the bags under my eyes, I think I would have got that ticket.
All right. Well, I'm glad that you survived your run-in with the law with the newborn. You'll probably tell that story at her wedding at some point.
I'm going to. So, I'm definitely going to
save that one. So you talked about this a bit, but I hear also on the show a ton that partnership is super important when you have kids. You and your wife kind of had this plan for her to be a full-time mom, and that was a big decision and discussion and something you had to come to agreement on. But I'm curious, I love to ask people this. Where's an area that you and Stephanie don't agree on when it comes to parenting?
Honestly, it's probably the screen time, and I would say probably like sugar intake. Listen, like when I say sugar, we're not feeding our kids like bags of Skittles every day, but it's like obviously they're kids, like if they eat their breakfast or whatever, but my wife is just a gentle soul that she just can't say no. And for me, it's like I look at my daughter, I'm like, another snack? Like, damn. And my wife's just like, leave them alone, Johnny. They're just a kid, like, blah, blah, blah. And the screen time is another one because obviously you want to entertain your kids as much as you can. For me, I always grew up like riding my bike and playing outside and stuff like that. My daughter does do that. She's very artistic. So she loves coloring and drawing and all that stuff. But I think the screen time is where, for me, it's like 2 hours is more than enough. But for my wife, it's like she just feels for them more, where it's just like, if she feels like watching a little bit of YouTube, just let her. Those are definitely two areas we most definitely disagree on.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably, of all the things in life to disagree on, those are probably two relatively minor ones.
100%. That's what I mean. I mean, if that's the issue for me, it's like, okay, but when it comes to disagreement, that's low, low, low on the scale.
That's great. Who tends to win out in those battles? Sounds like maybe your wife wins out.
I'm going to tell you, Adam, my wife wins 100% of the battles. I'm very passive, especially when it comes to my family. So sometimes, even though I know I'm right, I'll just let her win just because, just to end the discussion.
Yeah. Okay. So on the topic of screen time, you're building a company that uses a ton of technology. You're, employing stay-at-home folks, parents who are remote and doing things with technology on behalf of companies. Have you thought about the relationship that you want your kids to have with technology as they start to get older, especially given that there's a lot of discussion about girls on the internet and you have two daughters. So I'm just curious what you thought about there.
For sure. Honestly, it's been a battle. Technology is important because I want people to realize that people growing up like in their 20s right now, they're more tech enabled. They're smarter than my generation because we grew up in the flip phone era where, we were riding our bikes, and then once the street lights came off, we knew we had to go home. Yeah. So I understand that when my daughters get older, the technology is just going to be unbelievable. So there has to be some level of knowledge, because I feel like you'd be doing a disservice to your kids if you didn't. They're going to be working in a career where technology is going to be required, AI is going to be required. The exposure is what scares me. When you allow your kids on YouTube or Google in general, they're going to be exposed to things. So for me, it's like limiting social media. I think Instagram, and not necessarily Facebook, but more like Twitter, Instagram, maybe TikTok and Snapchat, those platforms tend to scare me a little bit more because you can't monitor what they're looking at. Their algorithms are more prone to showing people things that maybe they don't want to see. Obviously, if you're viewing it, they're going to show you more of it, but there's been a correlation between like mental health and what you see on social media. So for me, I also want to protect my girls. There's that fine line in the middle. It is setting them up for the future, but not necessarily exposing them too much to where I feel like I can't control what they're seeing or what they're doing.
And we have another segment on this show called AI Corner, where I like to ask parents what's the most interesting way that they are leveraging AI in their parenting. And it sounds like you've started using it to plan family vacations. So tell me about like what's your workflow look like for family vacation planning, and do you have a winning prompt?
Yes. So ChatGPT is my go-to. So I'll tell ChatGPT and I'll just say, hey, like I have a family of four. It already knows, obviously.
Yeah.
And we want to do a road trip. And the max amount of time we're willing to drive is like, let's just say 8.5 hours or 9 hours. What are the closest beach towns or cities that have beaches that we can go to? Blah, blah, blah. It has to have good food. I just tell it like, this is what is required. Spit out some options. And that's literally how we landed on Cape May. And I talked to my wife, and it turns out my wife had gone to Wildwood, which is next to Cape May, as a kid. She remembers it being amazing. And then that's kind of, okay, we're going to Cape May, chat, like, tell me, where should we eat? This is what we're craving. And then it tells me like, oh, Cape May has amazing seafood. So these are some places that you want to hit up. So that's literally what I use it for on the day to day. Obviously, if I write up an email and I need it to like refine it, it'll do it. But I mostly use it for like travel, because what's better than going into a city that you've never, or a town that you've never been into, and just already knowing where to eat, what to do, what your kids would enjoy, stuff like that. So that's kind of how I've been using it.
Oh yeah, love that. It's like your AI powered travel agent.
Exactly.
Yeah, that you can refine over time. We didn't like that so much. Give me more of this. Like, very cool. I also have used it for very similar things, and it's super helpful. Super helpful for planning even like an itinerary.
It really is. It really is.
Okay, I want to end on an optimistic note. Not that this entire show hasn't been relatively optimistic, but I love ending on like a really high note. There's a phrase that everyone has heard, which is nice guys finish last. You don't believe this. And so I want you to tell me about why don't you believe this? Okay.
So honestly, again, going back to just growing up being that nice guy that people knew me as, you always heard that phrase, you can't be like that, Johnny. People are going to take advantage of you. Nice guys finish last. Like, it was something that I heard all the time. And then I started following Gary Vaynerchuk. Not sure if you're familiar with him,
I
but
am.
he always preached about kindness. And I was like, man, I love this guy because he's in my industry. He talks about the things that I like love. His missions, his posts, like all that stuff just really resonated with me. So I was like, you know what? I need to be me. And if I'm that nice guy, I'm going to succeed one way or another, because being kind or being mean, it doesn't determine your success. But kindness is like the most underrated skill in business, because it actually helped me scale my business, because people remembered me. Like, even people that were like, hey, we're not interested right now. But even my kind response to them, they remembered it. Or I would send leads to my competitors. And then in turn, they started sending leads to me. So for me, it was like, no, this is really working out. I'm supporting other people. Like, if you go on LinkedIn, people will tell you like, Jonathan's my number one fan, even though I've never met him. But it's because I know the journey of entrepreneurship, and sometimes people don't have cheerleaders. So if I can be that guy on LinkedIn where you put up a post and I'm like, good for you. That's amazing. Keep going. People remember that. And it literally, when I say it helped me scale my business, it did. And so I've doubled down. I'm like, I'm going to just keep being me. And every time people tell me kindness, no, like, you can't be kind in business, it's cutthroat, it's this, it's like, no, it really isn't. It's relationship building. And people, brands specifically, if you're a kind person, they already know that you're going to take care of their company, you're going to take care of their customers. And that's why kindness and empathy is the number one pillar at Springboard. I don't care how skilled you are. If you are not a kind person, there's no place for you here.
Wow. Well, what a good note to end on. Kindness as a dad, kindness in business wins out. So thank you for sharing that with my audience, Jonathan. Okay, to end, how can people follow along or be helpful to you?
Man, follow me on LinkedIn. You can follow me on Instagram. You can follow the company. Obviously, Springboard CX is the company page on LinkedIn. If you're a business that needs to outsource support, feel free to reach out to us, springboardhq.com.
Awesome. We will link to all of those places in the show notes, and I hope to blow up your Instagram. Okay, do you have a few minutes for lightning round?
Absolutely.
This is my favorite part of the show. Here we go. What is the most indispensable parenting product you've ever purchased?
Honestly, I'm going to keep it simple. Definitely the Up a Baby stroller. It's a little expensive, but it was worth every penny.
Okay. What is the most useless parenting product you've ever purchased?
I always tell people the Boppy. I think it's still in the package downstairs in the basement. I don't think I ever used it.
And wait, I feel like I maybe had one of these, but I don't even remember. What is the Boppy?
It's meant to keep the baby up in an upright position.
Yes.
And we used it once and it just didn't work. So my wife was like, what do we do with it? Like, just throw it out or something.
Back in the
Back
box.
in the package, and it's just chilling, collecting dust.
Okay. True or false? There's only one correct way to load the dishwasher.
You want to laugh? My wife and I wash everything by hand.
Wow.
So we have a dishwasher. We've never used one. I would imagine there's multiple ways to load it. So I'm going to go there's definitely multiple ways.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't think I could survive without my dishwasher, even though when I was younger, I didn't have one.
Yeah. There you go.
Amazing. Okay. What is your signature dad superpower?
Dad superpower, man. I would say just maybe getting the girls to listen. They get away with anything with mommy. And then if dad steps in and says no, then it means no.
Dad means business.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the crazier block of time in your house? 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. or 6 p.m. to 8 p.m.?
6 p.m. to 7 p.m. for sure. My daughters, they're not even awake before 8 a.m. So we're lucky.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. But just complete chaos in the evening.
Oh my God. There's no such thing as a bedtime. It's just, they go to bed whenever they feel like it.
Whenever they fall over. Okay. The ideal day with your kids involves what one activity?
Probably just riding bikes, just chasing each other at the park or something. Just a simple day.
Yeah. If your kids had to describe you in one word, what would it be?
For sure, loving, without a doubt.
All right. What is the most frustrating thing that has ever happened to you as a dad?
Honestly, I just think just not having control when Cece was colic and my wife was postpartum. You tend to feel like nothing you do is going to change the situation. So just feeling helpless in that moment for sure.
Yeah. What is your go-to dad wardrobe?
Okay, so I'm going to plug a company in. and I hope that's okay, but it's Jambies.com, the most
Yes.
comfortable pajama, just loungewear in general. That's my go-to. I think I have like 10 pairs. And one of my favorite sayings, it's not to insult anybody, but it was always the people in suits work for the guys in pajamas. So I've always been in pajamas, not to knock people in suits. My family members go to work in suits, but Jambies.com.
Yeah, I have a couple of sweatshirts from Jambies. I bought my wife one as well. Very soft.
There you go.
Very comfortable.
There you go.
Don't have pajamas from there, though, so maybe I have to do that next.
You got to.
Okay, how many parenting books do you have in your house?
None.
Okay, and then if someone gave you a parenting book, how likely would you be to read it cover to cover?
Probably 0% chance. Honestly, I would, just because, listen, the one thing I learned is like there might be some good tidbits in certain books, but you don't know what your kid is going to look like. So sometimes those things don't really apply.
Yeah. What is your go-to bribe for good behavior?
Unfortunately, it's toys. My kids, every time we go to Target or whatever store, they have to walk out with something. So if they behaved throughout the day, throughout the week, Chantal did good at school, she came home with a good grade. It's definitely toys.
Okay. Do your daughters have a particular toy theme that they're going for right now?
It's always Disney. Disney
Okay.
anything. Disney purse, Disney this, Disney that.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. What is the most absurd thing that one of your daughters has ever asked you to buy for them?
Lime green bed sheets. She was 3 at the time, Chantal, and she's the type of kid where she's like, no, like I'm taking this home with me. And we were walking through the bedsheet section at Target, and we walked out with lime green bed sheets.
Okay. All right. Well, she's got herself some lime green bed sheets then. What is the most difficult kids' TV show that you've ever had to sit through?
I would say Coco Melon.
Coco Melon takes the prize on this show.
Yeah, it keeps the kids entertained, but man, when you're laying in bed singing those songs, there's an issue there.
Wow. Coco Melon will never advertise on this show. Unfortunately.
I'm sorry.
Not your fault. It's their fault. What is your favorite kids movie?
Probably anything Disney, like Wreck-It Ralph, Ratatouille. I would say Home Alone, but I don't know if that's considered a full-on kids movie.
Close, yeah. Maybe that's the answer to this next question. What nostalgic movie can you not wait to force your daughters to watch with you?
Okay, so I've never had to force. The minute September 1st hits the household, it's nonstop Home Alone and Santa Claus. But Home Alone for sure. Home Alone takes the cake.
It's a great film. What is the worst experience you've ever had assembling a kid's toy or a piece of furniture?
All of them. So I'm not an assembler. If I have the option to pay for assembly when it arrives, my daughter for Christmas, she bought like this massive Play-Doh thing. It was like 1 million pieces. I attempted, screwed up, of course, and just threw it out the next day.
Oh my God. That's amazing. Okay, finally, what is your take on minivans?
Had them my whole life. My dad was a minivan guy. I am definitely not a minivan person. If I had to have one, I probably would, but you'll never catch me driving one voluntarily.
Yeah, but it's almost a necessity when you were a kid with 3 other siblings, right?
Yeah, it definitely was. We were actually 5 kids. My youngest sister passed away when she was younger, so it was definitely a necessity to lug us all around. Yeah.
But not for now, not for you with only 2.
No, unless somehow I end up with 2 more daughters or 2 more kids in general, then we're going to have to start looking at those Toyota Siennas.
What is your wife's take on minivans?
Same thing. She hates them.
Okay, got it. All right, well, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining me today. That sounds like a good place to wrap up. Really appreciate all the time that you spent, and best of luck to you, your business, and your family for the rest of this year.
Thank you so much for having me, Adam. Again, this is my first podcast, and bro, if I'm going to be on another podcast, they got to beat this because this was super fun.
Thank you for listening to today's episode with Jonathan Jamil. You can subscribe and watch the show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Visit www.startupdadpod.com to learn more and browse over 100 past episodes. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.